On this fifth Sunday of Lent, we again remember the words of 16th century mystic Teresa of Avila. May today there be peace within. May we trust God that we are exactly where we are meant to be. May we not forget the infinite possibilities that are born of faith. May we use those gifts that we have received and pass on the love that has been given to us. May we be content knowing that we are children of God. Let this presence settle into our bones and give our souls the freedom to sing, dance, praise, and love. It is there for every one of us.
Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long, long way from home. Today's gospel is a familiar one, the woman caught in adultery. The scribes and the Pharisees bring a woman in the middle of a crowd where Jesus is teaching and tell him she was caught in the very act of committing adultery, and the law commanded them to stone her. And Jesus bends down to write on the ground with his finger before his famous response, "Let the one among you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone." And they went away. Jesus straightens up and asks, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" And she replies, "No one, sir." Jesus closes by saying, "Neither do I. Go and sin no more." Today we read this passage through the lens of who is named and who is not.
The woman at the center of this story is not named. Who was she? How was she? She must be terrified that she is about to meet her death, being tortured by a mob of people under the cover of religious law. Never mind that the law said that the man involved had to be with her before justice could be dispensed. Never mind that only Roman magistrates could impose such a sentence. The crowd had rocks in their hands, and they had her in their sights. Had she been taunted or assaulted? Was she stoic or was she hysterical? According to the record, the only words she speaks are, "No one, sir." We don't know her.
Along with so many women in our scripture, this woman is unnamed. There is the woman at the well, the woman who carried all the provisions that fed the 5,000 in what we call the miracle of the loaves and fishes, the woman who had come from Galilee with Jesus and were the first to find the stone rolled away from his tomb on Easter morning. One scholar said that there are 93 women who speak in the Bible, and 49 of them are unnamed.
What does it do to us when we are not afforded the dignity of a name? The women who followed Jesus, the women of the early church who were disciples and deacons, apostles and teachers, leaders of worship, There are pictures on the walls of the catacombs in Rome that depict women in the posture of a bishop. All these women reduced to namelessness and removed from the history of our faith. What has it meant to us that they are unnamed?
Think, in our scripture stories, who has a name? How has that impacted our church? What might we now be if the women who followed and studied and lived in the footsteps of Jesus were honored throughout the centuries? We remember the unnamed women today, and we mourn the losses our church has suffered because we have not been named or seen.
And think of the women at the border today known only as illegals. What might we become as a nation if we choose to begin every conversation on immigration by honoring these women who risk everything to save the lives of their children?
Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone a long, long way from home.
Who else in this story is not named? There is a mob of people with stones in their hands, ready to exact their warped version of vigilante justice. For these people, anonymity was a cloak, a shield. Namelessness meant they could fade into a crowd and fade into history. Mobs often have. And now in our country, in our world, we have a new kind of mob, a new race to judgment. All you have to do is hit send and stay hidden. The Southern Poverty Law Center reports the highest number of hate groups they have ever recorded in the US. Being without a name, being anonymous, can be a cover for both inciting and committing acts of violence in the name of white supremacy, white nationalism, anti-Muslim hatred, anti-Semitism, homophobia. What could our world be if we put down our stones?
Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. I'm a long, long way from home.
There is one person in this story who is named, Jesus. I know, duh. But think of Jesus being named in this instance because of his role in the story. When he could have chosen to be the bystander or remove himself, he always, as Sister Simone Campbell tells us, walks into the pain. He steps into the heart of the pain in the world and lets it break his heart as well. He puts himself in the way of violence and potential violence. The story goes that Jesus knelt down and wrote something in the dirt. There are interpretations that he did this to avert adding to the shame of the woman who may have been naked by making eye contact with her. Others say that he was writing the sins of the accusers in the dirt. Anna Vogli told me that you can hypnotize a chicken by making a scroll on the ground in front of them. Maybe Jesus literally shut down the scene with his refusal to be complicit.
It foreshadows what Jesus will do as he is dying on the cross. When he is taunted to use his power to save himself and chooses not to. Jesus ultimately gives his life to break the cycle of violence that has always been used to preserve an empire. Jesus was exactly where he was meant to be. And we are exactly where we are meant to be. That doesn't mean that we are in a place that we have chosen or in a place that is easy or happy. It does mean that we have the agency to choose what we will do with the power and capacity we have.
Our neighbor, Rabbi Michael Latz, has written, "You want to be a religious person? Learn people's names. Listen to their stories. Share your own. Break down those invisible but potent barriers. This is a radical act of resistance. And when human dignity demands that we interrupt business as usual to break the chains of bondage, then it is our religious inheritance to rise up against the tyranny that prevents all people or any person from being fully human."
May we use and name those who have been recognized and known, because dignity demands it. May we read our scripture, may we read our newspaper, asking who is named and noticing who is not.
May we not hit send in anonymous judgment or unkindness, and may we expose hatred when it is forwarded to us.
May we put ourselves in the ways of exclusion and choose encounter.
May we stand up when we are tempted to stand by. May we stop cycles of violence and break through codes of anonymity, silence, and shame.
Say our names.
Say our names.
Say our names.
Say our names.
Say our
Say
names.
our names.
Amen.